Gray brought attention to is that these programs that exist in our formative school years that are just in school, normal school, nothing even that has to do with, MK Ultra and these topics that we talk about. Normal schools that have everyday people have these gifted and talented programs, and they're looked at with prestige. They're looked at as something sort of a value that you want your child to be in, and they're promoted as being these really good things. And not to say that they aren't in every case, but as the podcast that I referred to earlier points out, there are connections to more nefarious things such as MK Ultra and using these programs as a scouting tool to find these quote unquote gifted children to prey on and groom to potentially be put into MK Ultra. And there's an anomaly on my podcast where there's so many of my podcast guests that have been involved in MK Ultra and satanic ritual abuse who growing up were placed in these programs through their teachers and parents. So there's a definite connection, and Gray points it out incredibly and breaks that all down. I'm going to be sort of more on the surface level and talking about some conspiracy-ish stuff that is not as concrete as what Gray presented. His presentation was incredible. It neatly laid out the history of gifted and talented, as well as providing actual evidence of what he is discussing and the direct connections. And it's very shocking. It definitely opened up a lot of eyes and ears. And one of the common anomalies is that many people who go through these programs do not remember going through them, even if they weren't subjected to MK Ultra and satanic ritual abuse. Just normal people don't remember going through these programs. So anyways, I made this post and it sort of took on a life of its own. The first post that I made got 424,000 views and so many answers. And I don't have enough time to go through all these answers. I'm going to connect the thread and I would love for you guys to go explore it because I have so many posts, and under each post there was an incredible amount of comments. Just on this first post alone, there was 404 comments. Some of them are mine because I made this into a thread. But for the most part, that is mostly people chiming in and saying, wait a minute, I don't remember, or this is what I remember. So that was my first post. After that, this is actually how I met another podcast guest, Katie Navi. I made a second post that I'm going to bring down or find that I found on TikTok from Katie Navi, who has been a podcast guest 3 times now. And it was actually how I discovered her. She came up in my feed, and this video came up where it was talking about GATE. It was either that or somebody sent it to me. I cannot remember. But either way, Katie was on TikTok, and she had this viral video that had millions of views, and it popped up in my feed, or somebody sent it to me or tagged me, one or the other, but it got around and eventually got to me. I downloaded her TikTok and put it on Twitter and had asked, if you were in GATE, gifted and talented education, as a kid, do you remember what happened to you? And what are you currently doing with your life? And then I said, interview coming soon about GATE and so much more with survivor Katie Navi. And I linked my YouTube channel, but I am going to allow you guys to listen to this video that she made.
Hey there, I'm Katie Navi. Were you a kid that was once considered gifted and talented? Did you receive a special education at school where you were taken out of your classroom once a week and in a trailer with no windows? Do you have vague memories or maybe no memories? You just know you were there? I'm curious to see among my feed here who among us was actually part of that school experiment. And where are you today? What are you doing today with your life?
Some of the interesting things that Katie talked about on the podcast episode we did, where we did a deep dive into GATE. And that podcast episode is awesome. If you guys haven't listened to it, I'll have that linked below too, so you guys can go check that out. Katie had brought up that, if I remember correctly, it appears that the people who are conscious of what they went through in GATE, so the people that do recall all their memories and don't have any sort of conspiratorial element to this, where they're like, wait, what happened to me? are things like lawyers, doctors, a lot of very prestigious career paths that people have taken who remember their gate experiences. This post, my second one, was my most popular one that I did with Katie. It had 815.6 thousand views, which is incredible. This one had almost 1 million views, which is really cool. This one was by far the most popular post that I have made, and it had 310 comments, and it was shared 261 times, which for some of these bigger accounts that might not be much, but for my little account, like, it's kind of cool. And so that one was Katie's video. And then I also linked Gray's episode, and I'm really excited to say that he's going to be doing a part 2. He's made some really interesting revelations ever since we did our part 1. So we will be doing a part 2 on that, which I'm really, really stoked about. But I'm just going to run through. These aren't necessarily in the order that I posted them in, but all of them sort of explain an element of this puzzle that got a lot of people thinking. And so I'm going to play this one next. So this one was another TikToker that I found who was talking about GATE and had some interesting feedback also. So let's listen.
Do any of you remember the GATE program from back in elementary school? How about the leads that they put onto your head, or the high frequency sounds they made you listen to? They were kind of like hearing tests, but they weren't testing your hearing. Let me know in the comments what you remember.
The title that I made on this post was "Who Remembers Being Tested with Headphones in Frequencies in GATE Gifted and Talented Education Programs?" And a lot of people had feedback on that too, about remembering or not remembering, and then the different things that they were remembering from it, the frequencies, and asking why were they putting frequencies in these headphones and what was the purpose of that. So a lot of really interesting questions around that aspect of it. And I would love to hear your guys' feedback too on your own experiences if you have